Welcome to the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, where there's always another secret.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to episode 42 of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies. That's right. Today, we discover the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Or we discuss the Cosmere, like always. Mm-hmm. Today is October 14th, 2019, and we have made it. We're finally here. In tonight's episode, we should be wrapping up our discussion, barring any extended conversations and need to go on, of Oathbringer, and as we look through all of the filling in bits like the interludes and possibly a set of epigrams or two. We probably won't get to the epigrams, but that's okay because each of those could be an episode on its own.
Yeah.
As always, I am Bill, and I am joined by my interstitial co-hosts Amy and Jordan. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
How y'all been?
I'm tired, but that's good. I got
You're
to
so
do good things today.
For the
You're
audio
so tired,
only
your hair has
listeners,
turned pink.
Her hair is pink.
I'm wearing my Tonks outfit, and I was recognized by two people there, which was nice. And I got a little boy who was lost to the information booth, so I did my good deed for the day. Yeah, it was terrible. I was on my way out, and I was kind of in a hurry, and then I saw this kid, and I was like, oh no, I can't just leave. I gotta do something.
And suddenly the inner mother within you starts just saying, this child must be saved.
Yep.
You see, and I hear that, and all I see it is, oh, no, if I do this, he's going to end up living with me forever. I know my tropes.
And she does have pink hair. She is a main character.
Yeah.
That's exactly how these things start.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been paying attention. So how's your new child?
He's good. I'm sure he's returned to his mother, and we're all good. We're all good that way.
Yes. We'll see.
His name is Teddy.
You didn't
Lupe.
feed him, did you?
No, I didn't feed him.
Okay.
I'm just still feeding myself as
Oh, yeah. If you feed them, then that's when, like, there's some sort of, like, sacred pact that happens.
That's the
in
threshold
the Fae realm.
of yeah.
Well, and I think they then split or something, or maybe that was Gremlins.
Anyway, this has absolutely nothing to do with what we're discussing tonight, but for those of you who listen to the podcast recordings or watch the videos on YouTube, we do want to remind you, you can join to interact with us live during the streams as we record each episode at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. We record episodes of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies every other Monday night, starting at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. So join us, take a part in the show. Be our peanut gallery as we talk about random stuff at the beginning of the episode. And if you don't like us talking about random stuff at the beginning of the episode, call us out in chat. You could join it. You could make a difference. This is where you step forward and take an active part in the creation of this podcast. That's right. We call upon you. Now, the Sandersonian wow, I cannot speak today. The Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, also referred to as SICS because of its initials, is made possible by the support of our listeners and patrons. The show, of course, will continue to be free, but if you want to help us out, go ahead and head on over to patreon.com/Cosmere Studies. Even pledging just a couple dollars per episode would really help us out as we work to improve the show. Yes, that's right. This show could get even better beyond the amazingness we have already achieved.
Yep, we're basically like Super Saiyans. There's always another level.
Oh, gosh. There's always another level. Wow. I see what you did there.
Thank you. I was quite proud of it.
Yeah.
If you do become a patron, you will get immediate access to our Discord channel, which is kind of awesome because there's just some great folks in there. You can chat about the show with them and with us. You can talk about the Cosmere. We have channels for just about everything, even stuff outside of the Cosmere. That's right. We have other interests. I know I'm sorry to shatter people's visions of us, but it's true. There are things that we study that aren't the Cosmere. that said, we love the Cosmere.
We do.
It is, like I said, it's a great community. There's a lot of great discussions. And at the same time, you will also get early access to any bonus episodes we come out with. You'll get exclusive access to other bonus content. And yeah, it'll be a great, fun time. So join us, right?
Yep.
Right. Of course, right. Guys, we're on the home stretch.
I know.
We have been in Roshar for so very, very long.
So long.
Oh, that's a good question. Pickett in chat asks, where does the term peanut gallery come from? I think it's from actual live productions way back in, like, basically the cheap seats.
And they would buy peanuts?
They would buy peanuts, sort of like you buy popcorn at a show. They would buy peanuts to eat, but a lot of times they'd, like, chuck them at the stage.
I didn't like that. Bad job.
So somebody heckles you and it's just like, hey, no more comments from the peanut gallery. So that's how that worked.
That's what we're guessing it is.
That was fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was a fun fact.
Random trivia. Yay.
Indeed. You get more and more as the show progresses. So don't you want us to progress even farther? Come on. All right, let's dive in. So we've got a bunch of interludes, but first, we haven't talked about the prologue to this book.
I skipped the prologue.
Now, I love... One thing I love about the Stormlight Archive is so far, the prologue of each book has been the exact same scene from different perspectives.
That's
First
right,
book,
yep.
we got it from Zeth's perspective. Second book, we got it from Yasna's perspective. And this time, we get it from Eshonai.
Yes.
So we get it sort of from the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
And just...
Yeah, but they didn't really add much. She didn't see much different than the other two, did she?
She saw a couple of people interacting, and it also started a bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And she got one really interesting moment.
Oh,
with
that was
Gavilar.
sarcasm. I completely missed that. I'm sorry. I was just like, are you, what? Okay. Anyway, why don't you talk about that?
Well, so it's just interesting when she's going in and, they're like bringing the drummers in and we're seeing early Eshonai who was nowhere near as dutiful as the Eshonai that we had come to know in book 2. Mm-hmm. And then she just suddenly randomly sees Gavilar and then things get weird.
Yeah.
Go on.
Well, so first of all, I do like, because she's very much an explorer, she finds out how big the world is.
Uh-huh.
And
yeah, she sees his maps and
he's like,
she's
no.
overwhelmed.
Yeah, you're over here. And she's just sort of like, oh. And here I was thinking we were going to map the world.
That's a long ways off.
Yeah.
It's a little bigger than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
But then Gavilar starts then telling her about, such interesting plans about, I don't know, bringing the listener gods back and showing her dark crystals and summoning Skeksis. It was bad.
Which, you look at the crystal, it really reminds me of the King's Drop at the end of the book.
Oh, yeah. It's clearly referencing it. Because,
the difference being that it's clearly significantly smaller. The King's Drop was referred to as the size of a child's head. But...
yeah.
And this is more like a Palantir. The crystal ball. A handheld... or
Like from Lord of the Rings.
The thing that David Bowie contact juggles with in Labyrinth.
And you decided to go with Palantir?
Dude, I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, yo. Fool of a took.
I
do
don't
know
this
his
word.
Baggins, right? Baggins?
Right?
You know that.
I don't even know what this relates to.
It's the orb.
It's the orbs that they talk through
Oh, okay.
in Lord of the Rings. It's those orbs that they have to keep covered because they don't have all of them.
Pippin touches it, and suddenly he sees the Eye of Sauron looking. Anyway, we're not talking about Lord of the Rings. This is the...
We're totally not on topic. It's great.
Welcome to the Tolkiensonian Institute of Hobbit Studies. Anyway.
But there's always another meal.
There is always another meal. And we are at the filling in the cracks episode.
Yep.
Anyway.
Okay, so back to Gavilar and Eshonai and their talk of raising dark gods. Now, the funny thing is Gavilar, talks to her and he's like, we're going to bring your gods back. And he's thinking, she's going to be excited about this.
It's
and
going
she's
to be
just
great.
Gulp.
Oh no.
There's also some. There's a ton of different ironies that go along with that. One, the fact that this is the thing that leads to Gavilar's own death. B, it's also, in doing so, they start. It starts a war between the humans and the listeners. That the whole reason they did this, the whole reason they're going to war, was to stop them from bringing back their gods. And then what do the listeners do? They bring back their gods.
They bring them back.
And so the whole thing was completely pointless in the end.
And it's all because of Venli. But I mean, I'm sure that the little Spren, I can't remember the Spren's name. Ulim would have found somebody else if Venli hadn't been cooperative. But there's a theme going through Venli's scenes where she keeps realizing, I'm the one who brought this. I'm the one who did this. Even as she insists that she's like, oh, I'm free of Eshonai now, but then she turns around and is going, I screwed up. But she doesn't full on say it.
The thing that's interesting is with Venli and Eshonai, they swap roles. When they were younger, Eshonai was out wandering, exploring, mapping, and just discovering new things. And Venli was home and steady, taking care of their mother, and just,
being the good daughter.
And then basically after this event, Eshonai kind of settles down quite a bit. She becomes a member of their council.
Yeah.
And is a very, very steady hand. And Venli starts kind of pushing the limits and, exploring new things. She's trying to find new forms. And, she finds a new form.
Yeah.
When she meets Ulim in the...
We don't know where she meets Ulim.
She talks about he appeared, like she captured him out in the storm or something, or...
Oh, yeah.
I'm willing to bet it's what we're going to find out in the next book.
Or I don't know. No, Ulim might have not... I can't remember if Ulim was the one that she caught in the storm, or if there's another one. Now that think about it.
She finds
Timber? A void. She finds a... Well, no, out in the storm, it's not Timber.
Timber is when she finds Eshonai's body.
Right, but I'm talking about when she first starts...
I don't think we know exactly how she.
I don't think it's exactly said, but she comments back, and says that that she started working with Ulim, but she doesn't say when she met Ulim, as far as I remember. But
she's also not sure where Ulim ranks. Like, is Ulim above the Regals, or is Ulim below the Regals?
That's right. Yeah.
The other thing that was interesting about that flashback, though, was the fact that we find out from some offhand comment from Gavilar that he's been having the same visions that Dalinar had. And it's one of those things, it's like, okay, that's interesting. I wonder, like, was he on the path of becoming a bondsmith, or...
And then he took a sharp right turn and went the other way.
Went Sons of Honor.
But yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those, until we get Gavilar's perspective. Who knows? Who knows what we're gonna get? But it's.
Do we know if we're gonna get his, or do we? We don't know who.
I thought he was the final one we were gonna get.
Oh, okay.
I thought.
I just wasn't sure if it had been said.
I could have made
who
that
is
up.
What?
Gavilar.
Sorry,
who the viewpoints that we're gonna get
of the party?
You mean one of the main 10, or?
No. Of the party, like at the beginning of each story.
Has Brandon said who we're getting in book 4?
That's what I was asking. If we did.
I don't think we know yet.
Yeah.
So,
oh, that's right. We do find out Gavilar told Taravangian about those visions as well.
Right, because that's what led Taravangian to go to the Night Watcher.
That's right. And I know from the early release scene, we get Navani's point of view for number 4.
Yes.
So
that's right. That's right. Navani.
So I guess I'm wondering who else is really left to be a viewpoint that's a main character. I guess Gavilar kind of is.
You could have some of the heralds.
That's true, but I don't know if he's going to do viewpoints
we already
from
know
the heralds
at
that
least
heavily.
4 that are at the party.
Oh goodness, yeah.
Well, and 2 of them are also going to get flashbacks.
Yeah. Well, because we know Yezrian's there because he's the drunk. We know.
Yep.
Nail and who was he talking to? Kalek?
I think it was Kalek.
Yeah, and then we know somewhere, or at least recently, somewhere there's been what's her bucket? Scratches everything out.
Ash
has been there because they find things scratched out in there.
Right. There was a statue that was...
That she scratches at the face or the head or something.
Yeah. So we know at least 4.
Yeah.
That are at this incredibly important event.
Mm-hmm. Gavilar is a good one. We could also get Sadeas.
Oh, is Sadeas in that meeting?
Oh yeah.
I guess he's out in the... Oh, that's right.
He was dressed as Gavilar.
He provides the distraction. Yeah.
Right.
That'd be a very interesting one because we've only had Sadeas perspectives when he's older and way more jaded.
And exactly.
Because he's always been selfish in in what is for him, but he used to have Gavilar that that he respected enough that he would follow him.
Well, and Gavilar was the uniting point between Dalinar and Sadeas.
Yeah, and so it'd be very interesting to get a chapter of what was it like for Sadeas before he became the monster he became.
Yeah.
Yeah, so part of me doesn't want to see him as a good guy just because it's too easy to hate him.
I actually would like to have him fleshed out a bit because that's one thing that Brandon does well is having fleshed out villains, understandable villains and I'd like to see that actually applied to Sadeas.
I know. It's just the I don't like him. Part of me says I don't want to see it just because I don't want to.
And that would make the earlier books and his character in the earlier books that much more tragic.
Oh, I know.
And so I think that would be absolutely fascinating to see.
Don't worry, if you need someone to hate, Straff Venture will always be there.
He's always going to be there. I know. You can always rely on him.
And there.
Yeah. Now remember,
and the horse he rode.
Amy,
yes.
You don't want to hate him. That is of Odia.
Oh, you make such good points, Bill. Such good points.
Now, one thing I'm actually really, really excited about with Book 4, and obviously I'm not giving any spoilers for Book 4 because I've never read Book 4, so I feel I'm okay to talk about this. But we do know that Book 4, the flashback characters, originally were going to be Eshonai. And then Brandon tried and decided he was going to do Vinley, and that didn't quite work, and so he decided to do a back and forth between Eshonai and Vinley. And honestly, I think that's the exact right decision.
That's gonna
because
be
these sisters are two sides of the same coin, and when one of them flips, the other one flips the other way. And there's just this huge balance between them, and they even share a sprint.
They do, yeah. And it's it reminds me of how in Warbreaker, the sisters there flip too, and as to who's responsible and who's not.
Fair enough. Yep. And just as another heads up, there are potential spoilers for the entire Cosmere over this whole discussion. So,
yeah.
And that's basically the case moving forward. No holds barred. You've been warned. Yeah. But yeah, it's just really interesting to watch Vinley progress. And one thing that I noticed over the course of her flashbacks, as she's talking about the new rhythms that she listens to him, she can't even hear the old rhythms. And then suddenly Tambur's able to kind of
bring him out whenever she's around Tamber by herself, as she can feel him then.
I really like
she's a little bit uncomfortable at first too with it
surprises
getting them
her.
back. Yeah.
I really like the R2D2 3PO conversations they have.
I absolutely like because Tamber is adorable.
You don't hear what Tamber is saying usually. Like I don't think you do ever.
Well, all we get is whatever rhythm she's attuning.
Yeah. Rhythm she's speaking, but not any actual words.
Which just reminds me of R2D2. You can hear the tone of his beeps and boops.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I love that she actually pulses to the rhythm, like not audibly, visually, because she's a light spread.
So it makes sense.
But it still matches the rhythms. And
it reminds me what someone once asked Brandon, like if a seeker from with Alamantic bronze went to Roshar, would they be able to feel the rhythms? And Brandon,
would they feel the rhyme?
No, but everybody get ready. It's schedule time. But the
it's Mistborn time.
He said they would, but they wouldn't feel them the same way. But with things like pulse length and stuff that they feel from Alamantic pulses, they'd feel something similar.
That's interesting.
That is cool. So probably not a tonal quality, but they'd feel a pulse. Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like how bats, maybe. I don't know.
It's like if your phone starts ringing in your pocket and you don't expect it, and you're just like, "What is that?" Oh, right. There's
the thing. Yeah.
There's a
and if
a
they
rhythm
did it,
that's
if they did it
happening.
enough, they might be able to start picking up on what those different pulses mean.
Well, sort of the same way that in Mistborn they could do that and determine which metal's being burned.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I thought that was interesting that that's how she communicates. The other thing I found interesting about her was the fact that early on, and I think it's the very first flashback we have with her, where she gets flippant with Uli, and she just tells Uli, "I will be a queen."
Ulim?
Yeah.
Uli. I keep saying Uli. That's Poolies later.
Ulida.
But no, he's just like, perhaps, maybe. And then later on, as she's in envoy form, she keeps getting dirtier and dirtier and more put on the edges of society, more isolated. And it's one of these things talking about how she's being humbled in all this, and how she's trying to push away that humility because it makes it so that she has to think about what she did.
And
She's
she doesn't
basically
want to.
she's in some ways she's being brainwashed.
Yeah.
It's like putting you through trauma, and it's almost like they're trying to ignite some sort of Stockholm syndrome.
And they keep making her repeat the same stories over and over and over again.
Yeah, even though they're not all of them
Not
are true.
100% true, yeah.
Yeah.
Massaging the stories at the ends here.
But yeah, it's just I had a thought that I was thinking about. Oh, envoy form itself I think is kind of a fascinating setup, because you notice it gives her connection. It gives her access to
That's
connection.
right. Because she doesn't understand the fused at first, and then as they're talking more, she starts to understand it.
Well, and when she's in envoy form, she can speak in
Pretty much any
most
language.
languages.
Yeah.
And it's very, very similar to the way that connection works in Mistborn Era 2, and the way that Dalinar's bondsmith ability to connect with people and speak their language temporarily.
That would
works.
make sense,
Except-
because it seems like all Odium's forms, as well as Honor's forms, all share the same.
There's a pattern there.
Yeah,
At the same
but they don't
time,
all.
there's because like we have the ones that can form the carapace up and down their body, and you're like, okay, is that maybe something like a stone ward but different, or?
It almost makes me think of shard plate, but
Yeah.
you don't get that until later with Honor, because we haven't seen anybody get it yet.
It doesn't seem like their powers can affect anything that isn't themselves, because you notice they
Right.
can't they have to fly her with the harness. They can't just touch her,
Lash
give
her the way that...
That's true. Yeah, they have
and
to
then
physically.
we
carry
don't see the club guys. They don't make other things grow. They make it grow out of their carapace. It
Which
seems
is all sorts of creepy.
yeah.
It's like a selfish version of the magic.
And that's sort of what it seems like.
Which
to me.
would fit with Odium.
Yeah. Well, and sort of like how in Mistborn you have pushing magics and external magics and pulling and internal and physical and all that stuff. It's like it's internal.
Because looking at envoy form, she doesn't need to touch anyone the way Dalinar does to get that connection.
Yeah.
It's all
She
internal.
just gets it from listening.
It's interesting. She also she reflects on the nature of gem hearts at one point, and distinguishing between the listener's gem hearts versus the great shells. She talks about how those are big and gaudy and flashy, and the listeners, their gem hearts are white and pure and
kind of a secretive, sacred thing. And
Exactly.
that's when she's talking to the fused at first, and the fused is like, why are you so coy about talking about it? Why don't you just it's a thing, you shouldn't be so worried about it. But it's just like part of their
it's
my
much
ear's
more
itchy.
dismissive.
Yeah.
The other thing
Sorry,
that's very
it's way too
interesting
itchy.
about her and talking to the fused is how she, as she talks to them, she's realizing our gods are kind of going crazy.
Yeah, there's a few that she's like, I don't like
The
them.
gods
They've
must
gone.
be crazy.
They've all gone a little crazy.
Well, and I like that because this is before she's really started to move along her path. She has the thought of will Odium need other ones, new gods? Like, she's still seeking more power. And then she sort of was like, why am I not bothered by the fact that they just killed my mate? Like, that should be...
Yeah, it bothers her at first, for sure, but then it's later that she's getting used to it, like, you know, like Bill was saying about being brainwashed, kind of. And just over time, you get more complacent with things, even if you're like, wait, why am I used to this? This should be terrible.
Right.
It's very...
Like my 4-year-old's
I don't
behavior.
know, I just find it very interesting, her path, because the other... Like, the others, their path has been more linear. I'm not saying there hasn't been up or down. She tends to vacillate to me, like, it seems to me, way more than the other ones we've seen so far. Maybe not, maybe in comparison to Shallan, not so, but Shallan is just a whole different bag of cats.
Well, and part of that is because she has this internal struggle, because she's kind of fighting against...
Envoy form. Right.
Well, just the Void Spren bond, period. And then she has a happy little protector who were the most adorable little just champions.
I'm now just imagining her as BB-8.
Oh yeah, actually that fits very, very well with kind of how I picture her.
Just itty bitty.
No,
and I just love the fact that, you know, that suddenly Timber comes in and captures the Void Spren and just like essentially she imprisons it. And she's like, you could do that? And and just like, the response is just like, darn straight I can do that. Watch
me. Bring it. I got this.
The other thing that was interesting was when the Void Storm or whatever they're called. What? Hang on, I'm blanking.
Everstorm?
The Everstorm?
Oh, suddenly I couldn't think of it. When it comes, she can feel like she was trying to attune. I can't remember. I think like Resolve, but like as the storm got close, she could feel the Void Spren in her gem heart, like you know, doing destruction, and then it hits her. And when Odium shows up, it's just that's a horrifying scene.
Oh yes,
it's like a really bad acid trip.
Again, it's the whole concept of you are defeated. There is no escape. I dominate you. Don't even try. And it's this cowing into submission.
Yeah.
Well, it's
to the point where
it's so different from how he treats his fused. Like when he talks to his fused, like there's that air of power, but he does tend to be a little nicer, a little, you know, almost familial with them.
I mean, he's known them for longer, for sure, and they're more his creation than her.
Yeah. It's with her, he just immediately goes to 10 and just doesn't let up.
Well, and it may be because Eshonai was resisting him, and he's just like, this ain't gonna happen again.
This is the sister, so I'm gonna make sure that she doesn't do it.
Remember they who was it? One of the fused basically said,
the one who took over Demid's body. Yeah. I can't remember his name.
He basically said she is she was corrupt, she was imperfect, she'd been something,
she resisted,
she didn't take it, she didn't adapt to it properly, she was going to have to be killed eventually anyway.
It might have been Ulam. It was either Ulam or the fused.
I think it was Ulam.
That would make more sense for Ulam, yeah.
But yeah,
but it's also just it's so different from how he treats Dalinar and Taravangian as well. Like his conversations with them, it's definitely like a you know, someone who's like an abusive parent trying to fake being nice. But he does try to fake it. But for some reason with her, he just goes straight scorched earth, and it's just like, I mean, you could massage this a little bit.
You could be a little gentler there. Maybe make her like you a little more.
Of course,
maybe not burn her tongue out as she's talking to you.
Of course, that said, she does end up resisting him. And you know, it's probably he sort of suspected something was going on. He's like, I got to nip this in the bud. Sorry, buddy.
He just took it a little too far.
For someone who's supposed to be so good at future sight, he doesn't see a lot coming in this book.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's burning, what is it, Electrum?
Yeah, Electrum.
Yeah, which messes with Adium.
Anyway. I don't know. It's just one of these things. It falls under the trope, good job breaking it, villain. And I feel like he's just doing that a lot in this book.
Yeah. It's true. It's very, very true. All right. Now, at the end, we end with Vinley basically heading to Thalen City, right?
Yeah, it's not specifically stated, but it's pretty clear that that's where they're going.
Right. And just sort of getting set up to be at the
big battle.
The battle of Thalen Field. Mm-hmm. And witness it and start kind of pulling away. She's got this little internal resistance going on. She and Tamber got, or they're starting their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really excited to see where they go in the next book. So,
if for no other reason, I'm really excited to find out what oaths she speaks.
Mm-hmm. What the Will Shaper oaths are?
Will Shaper and Dustbringer are the two who. What do they actually swear? Really intrigue me. Because I just don't know what the actual oath would be. Because it seems so open. Could possibly be so open ended. I don't know.
Yeah. We haven't had any scenes. We haven't had any scenes from Malata's point of view. She's been in scenes, but she hasn't been the viewpoint character yet.
Right.
So she might become a viewpoint character.
Well, and at one point she tried like bonding with Shallan or something. It's just like, no, this is.
When did
weird.
she do that? I'm trying to remember when.
There was a scene where like Shallan sort of. It's before it's like when Yesna comes back and Shallan starts like hanging at the back of meetings. And Malata like chats her up a little bit. Although to me it didn't strike as much as befriending her. It seemed to me more like sizing her up.
Well, except that she was like saying stuff like, these people are idiots. And it was like she expected, like I think Shallan even mentions, like, did she expect her to agree with her on this? And honestly, Shallan's reaction made me think of, okay, I'm going to pull out a weird reference. Shrek 3. Where
I'm so invested in where this is going.
Well, because there's a part where Shrek is talking to Arthur, and eventually Arthur runs away. He's like, "Help! There's an ogre who's trying to relate to me." And I'm just like, "Help! There's a Dustbringer that's trying to relate to me."
It's uncomfortable. I don't like it.
But yeah. Anyway,
we have crossed the Shrek 3 threshold.
Yes.
Wow. We've been places.
It was a better movie than it was given credit for.
Yeah.
Anyway,
it's been a long time. Should we move on to the other?
Let's move on. So, one of the things I love about the interludes is we get just such a broad range of characters. Mm-hmm. Brandon uses it to kind of build the world and show hints of what's happening in other parts of the world, which I kind of love. I've seen other authors do this very, very ham-handedly. To the point where, I'm sorry, I know we have a whole lot of Wheel of Time fans. And honestly, I read all of them, and I did enjoy. I think it was worth reading. There were still a few issues. There was one book that almost the entire book was just people across the world reacting to something that had happened in the previous book. Like, I feel like that was like 60% of the book. And I can't say what it was because it's a really big spoiler.
And I haven't read them.
Me neither.
I've read part way into the second one, but that's about as far as I've gotten.
We probably have a lot of listeners who would prefer not to be spoiled on those as well.
Yeah.
So
we're Cosmere studies.
But the thing that I find interesting is how, if you go back to the interludes from the previous books, they turn out to have things in them that are much bigger than they look at the moment. Yeah. Like the one that sticks out is Nail's killing of the cobbler.
I know, it's so sad.
Well, we had no clue what was going on in that scene, but it puts so much into perspective. And Axe is basically like a prologue for Edge Dancer itself.
Yeah, it does.
And so I see things like this, like Pooley, as he's going around talking about how, they're gonna, people will come with light in their spheres, and I'm just like, what are you setting up, Brandon?
I know. I was like, who are they supposed to be? Like, it's not clear who that new group is. And I caught something new at the end of Alista's scene that made me kind of go, ooh. And it was I can't remember the Ardent's name, but the Ardent who she was talking to, and he's like, oh yeah, my customer or my whoever's hired him, it has a really tight deadline for getting the Dawn Chant translated. And I was like, oh, that's Taravangian's people. So I was so excited that I caught that.
Oh, let's actually talk about Alista.
Oh my goodness,
we'll jump back to Pooley in a second, but you brought up Alista, and I want to talk about. because the character, she's an ardent reading a dime store romance novel. And
it sounds like it's so over the top purple prose,
it's
horrible,
wonderful.
but I'm like, I probably would read that if I was living in Roshar, because there's just a special place in my heart for books like that where I'm like, I know this is not good
for bodice
writing.
Rippers, as I've heard them called.
Yeah, or corset rippers. Corset rippers is usually what they call it, or this is what I've heard it called.
But the thing that I love about it is how it's still so Voron.
Oh, it's absolutely Voron. Like, she's stroking his arm with her covered safe hand.
Oh, she puts it on his face, too.
Oh, she puts it on his face.
It's a really big deal. And she's just like,
oh
my
my
goodness.
Oh my.
She's like,
clutch your
My
pearls.
heart is racing. Oh.
And then her ardent friend, I cannot remember his name. Chat room, can y'all fill us in on that? But who
don't
she's talking
tell us.
to?
It's more important he just be faceless.
What? Who?
The ardent friend.
The ardent who shows up and is chatting with Alista.
Oh,
and lets her know about the sequel.
Oh, he's like, there's a sequel, and she's like, what?
But I love that he comes in. And she immediately sits on the book. She's like,
no, you can't.
What are you doing?
That I'm doing that.
I think Pickett's right in chat. I think his name is Greg.
I don't think it's Greg.
I remember he's from a different country. I can't remember what the country is.
What an Alethi name that would.
That actually isn't too bad an Alethi name. Just given that it's almost this. The what is it called? Where it's symmetrical. Yeah. It's almost symmetrical. Interludes. Okay, so Ardent Greg comes in, and
I'm gonna find his name. Don't worry.
No, but
I think that's the title. So Ardent Greg comes
now.
in.
It doesn't matter what Brandon wrote anymore. He's now
guys.
Greg.
I'm calling it episode title. So Ardent Greg comes in.
No, but the thing I love about him, he's trope savvy. He's like, no, it's a sequel, and you always sequels have to be bigger.
They have to up it. They have to have 3. It's Irv. Irv is his name. URV.
That's right. And
I love that Wit is one of the people who is the third love interest, or is the love interest. And then this says the King's Wit is one of the love interests in the next one.
But that's not necessarily... The King's Wit is a role.
It made me happy that
the court jester. And
it says, look, we all know that
I want it to be Wit, just for the hilarity.
To her point, Wit has talked about how he has unintentionally created religions around him and stuff. I like to believe that he unintentionally got into this smutty romance novel.
Didn't he also talk about how he had danced with a listener?
Yeah.
He's like, she didn't recognize me. That was epilogue of that. Yeah.
It's like, I danced with her once. So maybe there is a trashy dime store novel written about it.
Hoyd probably wrote it.
I think Doc FG's right. Hoyd probably wrote it.
He got bored, so he felt like writing some stuff. Yeah, it's great.
When he finally gets his flute back, he's like, I know just the story to tell right now.
I'm going to do it. Yeah.
Poor Kaladin, for some reason, stuck in a cell again and just has to listen.
What? Wow. So Pooley.
Yes, Pooley.
Pooley is the lighthouse keeper. He's in New Natnan. So anyway, I love how Brandon gets in these characters' heads, and he sort of builds the world just on the way they see the world. And he's just like, their skin wasn't even the natural blue color. And it's just like, wait, okay, so apparently their skin is a blue color. Which we also see discussed when Hoyd is later telling the story of Misham, and it talks about how those people have a bluish hue to their skin. And so apparently he wants us to know that there's something up with the people on the East Coast. So
no. The other thing that was interesting, I love him. He's just like, oh, so tragic, as he's like happily getting all this wood.
It's like, but more wood for me. Oh, that's so sad. Just gonna keep taking the wood. He does watch some ladies' kids and stuff like that, so it seems like he's a trusted member of the community.
Yeah, even if he's just he does seem mooching. Like he's a genuinely friendly guy, or at the very minimum, he's trying to actually let these people feel, that someone cares. Even though he doesn't, he's trying though.
Yeah, he's doing a real good job mimicking.
As long as we don't find out there's a bunch of bodies underneath the lighthouse or something, it's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I've read all of these multiple times, but for some reason, Pu'uli does not stick in my head, so I can't remember much about this.
I did like that it felt kind of almost lyrical, like listening to, like reading it, and how it kept, like he kept saying, oh, it was such a tragedy, but then he grabs the wood, and it felt like it followed the pattern a lot that way. I can't remember the exact wording, but that was basically, and it just like the whole way through. And but he talks about how his father and grandfather and stuff like that were waiting for the people with the lights, and like he's like, oh, is it going to start now? And we're not sure what is coming. But that's what I remember from it.
But he knows that something's coming from the east.
And it's definitely going to be fish people in Cthulhu.
Oh, goodness.
Oh, my. Well, that took a very different turn than I expected.
Also, the other thing, his name looks very Elantrian to me.
Well, because it's got the double vowel.
Yeah, and so I just wonder if there is going to end up being some sort of...
Well, I mean, if you think about it, there is another lighthouse in this book.
And it's
an Elantrian.
Oh, yeah.
It's just sort of like I just remember, growing up I grew up in the Dallas area. Every single donut shop was owned by a Vietnamese family. Just because sometime in the 60s, someone came, opened one, and it somehow spread.
Huh.
And so I just wonder if maybe that's something similar, that maybe Elantrians came and started doing the lighthouse thing. And just over the generations, I don't know.
Huh. I don't know.
But then the blue factor seems weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, no idea.
Yeah.
So
total speculation.
Yeah.
For Doc F. Doc, it's the other lighthouse is in Shadesmar.
The one in the cognitive realm, yeah.
Yeah. That Kaladin sees the future and stuff like that.
Right, I know.
Yeah. I can't remember his name.
Yeah.
And so okay, so moving on, unless there's anything else you want to say about Pu'uli.
It was just cute,
tragic.
kind of like, slice
Truly
of
tragic.
life. Yeah.
This next one is just creepy and cool.
My goodness.
And raises so many more questions. We're talking about Kaza, the Soulcaster.
Like, I would love to do a costume as her, but there's no way I would know how to do the makeup for that, because that would be insane. So if someone ever sees a cosplay of that, you gotta give me a link.
She is like that. This is the cool thing. Like Soulcasters, it's really interesting seeing these Soulcasters as compared to Shallan and Yasna, because
it consumes
there's some sort of leakage. It almost seems like, and as they work to convince these other things to become smoke, suddenly they just start thinking, that actually doesn't seem like a bad idea, and it just.
And they become more.
And they gradually, over time, start to become like in the second book. I think it was when we see the Soulcasters marching through the camps. Is that the second book?
I think that was
Words of Radiance. And some of them are sort of turning to crystal. Some have like leaf or like vines.
Yeah,
and
that's the one we see in Kolinar that Lady Azure has stowed away. They're growing vines because they're the grain.
Right, because she's making grain.
That's right. And it's staying underground.
Yeah,
to do it and not
so
be noticed.
and she is becoming smoke. To the point where like different parts of her have
she's got a hole in her cheek, and she's like, and like half of her face is starting to go, and like her hair and her hands are just
and
like.
She talks about how chewing has become difficult because she has to like cover up the
hole in her cheek because otherwise it just comes out, and she has to like tip her head back to eat and to drink and stuff like that.
The other thing I like about
she can't even taste anymore.
I like how smoky her personality is, where she's so detached from everyone else. Like when that one guy comes up to talk to her, she's like, okay, what does he want? What would a normal person want? What
she's like, do you want sex? What do you want? I don't understand. And he's just like, no, I'm not even. It's
not
the
even
captain.
Close.
Yeah, the captain's like, no.
But like, I like her motivation for doing this. She wants to solve her smoking problem. And
she wants to be her own person, and she doesn't belong to anybody.
Right.
Because it sounds like she was kind of shoved into the slot because of who she was born, the family she was born into. Well, she was...
And she's
yeah,
also
it
of
was
the
like
right
it's-
lineage, because they
Yeah,
want to
it's
keep it in
handed
the royal
down.
line or something.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how she talks about how they give her basically anything a person could want for mortal delights, because
But they keep her
can't-
locked up.
But they can't actually lock her up. They know that, because at any moment
She
she
could turn
just-
anything into smoke.
That you can't contain that.
No, and so it's interesting that her motivation to get it solved, but just not letting them determine her thing, because that's also smoke. Smoke does not like to be contained.
I really want to see a conversation between a soulcaster and Shai from The Emperor's Soul.
Oh, man.
Just because there's so many similarities, but they're clearly different as well.
Well, there's also a very interesting moment where she actually starts using it, where she talks about how she feels something else on the other side, that that she's like it almost feels like a spren, that what she's talking to.
And she's seeing things, too.
Yeah.
She's seeing parts of Shadesmar. She's seeing through to the cognitive realm.
Well, and that's
what it
part
sounds
of soul casting.
Yeah.
And everybody else is creeped out by her descriptions, but she's like, well, it's just right there. Why is it such a big deal?
But that's the thing. We know that this is, like, where they went is where the soulcasters came from, at least in their lore. And part of me wonders if this is some other type of... Cause we don't understand how the soulcasters work, but everything else we've seen of the great wonders of the ancients are actually from the creation of bonds of some kind. And part of me wonders, given the nature of what they do, where they change something, if this is maybe something tied to cultivation.
Right.
That this is some particular bond that they made with her. But we don't know enough to really understand it, but it's just something's off. Also, I love that the island is basically like a giant porcupine, the way it's described. It just has
like
these
they have all the
spikes
spines
everywhere.
sticking out.
What I also just love when the cook finally reveals herself to be what type of
hordling.
alien is it?
Hordling.
Yeah,
Hordlings. Yeah, I can't remember what they're called.
Dissian and something else.
Yeah.
But when she's just like, you guys were warned multiple times not to come
She's
here.
like, and I knew you'd be harder to kill because of, how you are now.
But I just love how it just sort of it fits that horror movie trope of there's that one person who has to sort of be the harbinger that lets them know, don't go there, don't go to old man Williker's house because everyone he does dies or whatever.
Now, remind me, this is the second time we see this kind of alien after Edge Dancer, correct?
Yes.
This is the second time you see a horde. I think they're called hordlings.
Well, the Hordlings are the
Are the little bits. That's
are
right.
the
Yeah.
Crimlings.
I tried to draw them, so that's why I knew the name.
Yeah. But it's just interesting how she's like, you were warned. We made the island a giant thing of spikes. We could not be more clear. Don't go in there. And you guys still went in there.
You kept doing it anyway.
Well, part of it just reminds me of playing video games where you get all these people trying to find out. It's like, well, we can't go there because there's a storm there. And then there's the sequence breakers who are like, I'm going to go there.
Yeah.
Gonna do it. Can't stop me.
Yep. Oh man. Yeah, I am
So that's a trippy
very
scene.
so this is, you were talking about how Pu'uli's probably foreshadowing something coming in the next book or possibly the one after that. This is definitely going to be important later on because holy cow.
And I
You
did
can't
like
tease
that
us
she
with
went out
this
her
and
own
then-
way. Yeah, she was like,
Yeah.
nope, you
Instead
don't get
of
to kill
being
me.
eaten
I'm going to go.
slowly by just a bunch of bugs. Yeah, no thanks. I'll take us.
I'm going to turn to snow. I'm going to turn to smoke like I've been tempted to do for a while now. I'll just do that.
Well, and she's been planning to go out this way eventually. Like she talks about one day she would just go with it.
She wasn't going to
And-
say no to it, yeah.
Yeah, and this time she's just like, it's time.
I'm doing
I'm
it.
going out, because you can tell she's kind of been looking forward to becoming one eventually, but only after her work was done. Well, now her work is done, clearly, because there's no other way for her to
Yeah.
do it.
Or to get
So
out,
she
yeah.
Basically, yeah. All right, so let's move on to Jordan. I think you'll want to start us off on this one. We go visit Taravangian.
Oh, okay. So which one was the Taravangi?
This is the one where he has the smart day.
The smart day with the choir of children.
Yes, the choir of children that he ordered to be slain.
Yeah, it's like, bring me this, do this, and somebody kill those children.
You mean
and everybody's
stop singing?
And they all
yes, whatever.
Well, you kind of, as soon as he says it and everybody gasps, you kind of see him pause. He's just like, is that not normal?
It's like,
is that a step too far? It actually reminds me very much of, if you've read The Name of the Wind. I'm not going to go into details because I don't want to spoil too much, but when he takes the plumb bob.
Yeah.
It's been too long, I don't remember.
Yeah, and it basically, he just has no inhibitions, and so he says, we're going to do this, and there's like, no, that's too far.
But no, the thing. Okay, so that chapter is so interesting for multiple reasons, and probably too many to even cover in this single podcast. There's three things that stuck out to me this reading. One, he's much more honest about the plan when he's like this, because he said is like, this is what we have to do to save the world, and in his own mind, well, the part of the world that matters,
right?
Showing that this isn't as selfless a plan as he likes to justify to himself. This is about saving the people he cares about.
Right.
Yeah.
Not about saving the world.
Now, at the same time, this is when he's at his least compassionate, and he's still at least, even though it's his area, it's other people.
Yeah.
It's almost and so it's at least something. But
it's something, but it's that line, just the ones that matter, really stuck out to me, because he doesn't think that when he's, cause it's too cynical a thought, and when he's kinder, he doesn't think like that, because he does wish he could save more people, but he's just too pragmatic at this level,
right?
But so that was one thing. The second thing that really stuck out to me was just how he gamed his own test, because he doesn't like his own restrictions.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that's interesting about it is it shows you Adrotagia is pretty clever herself, because she recognizes it.
That he skipped the question on purpose.
And like, it's just one of those, it makes you sort of pause and be like, okay, Adrotagia, you're more interesting than I thought. I want to keep an eye on you and see where you go. And so just suddenly Adrotagia became a much more interesting character to me. Yeah, but the fact that he gamed his test, like, that was a cool little touch. The other little touch is he starts changing the diagram.
Yeah, he's like cutting it up and ripping it up and taping it together in different ways and trying to tweak it, and that horrifies them.
Well, and he realizes that he left himself a key, and you're like, okay, the diagram goes like multiple levels deeper than they even realize.
Well, because we find out how deep it goes when Odium takes a look at it, and you find out
at the end of and
you find out that he left messages for his dumb self to follow when Odium did that, because he predicted this, and it would interact this way. So the diagram is so deep. There's so many layers to it, and that was the third thing I was going to bring up. The fact that he's still finding stuff, but at the same time, this gets to, so whenever you talk about translating a holy text, there's so many sticking points, because there's so many people who have so many different feelings about, okay, well, no, you can't do this, but you can do this, and they do treat this text as holy, and so in his current state, he sees it as, this is no big a deal. I'm going to do this because, clearly this is where he laid out. But it doesn't clearly seem that way to everyone else. And this is how you start
He skips steps. He's like just suddenly jumping steps.
Well, and you can see like a real world parallel. You look at Christianity and its schism on all these different various things. And it feels
because
like
it's interpretation.
It's everyone's interpreting
by different people interpreting the same thing.
And it's interesting because as part of the diagram, they talk about how they all are free to pursue their own interpretations. But at a certain point, the rubber's going to hit the road on that. I think we're foreshadowing maybe someone breaking away from his sect of the diagram.
Well, and Brandon sort of covers this kind of topic in Elantris as well, because you look at Shu-Dareth and Shu-Korath, they originated from the same person, and there were two disciples of that person.
Right.
They're, it's just so it's an interesting that it's interesting that Brandon has kind of re-examined this concept.
The other thing I found very interesting, because this chapter, more so than others, we see how reverent Taravangian is about the diagram, which is weird because he wrote it, but just not that version of himself. But it's also, whereas he openly talks about how this is the path that, in very religious tones. Everyone else in the diagram is uncomfortable with that, as we learn later. They talk about how they don't like it when he says things like that, because in their mind, it divorces it from the pure logic that this is supposed to be. But he holds that pure logic in such high regard that it is a holy thing for him. Yep.
Well, to the point where I love the line that Brandon put in where he says, on that day he had been God. Today he could be content with being God's prophet. And it's just like, he's the same person, but at his different levels, he actually sees himself as different people.
Yeah.
And it's just, an absolutely fascinating look. All right, we got to move on beyond Taravangian, unfortunately, even though we could spend hours talking about that guy.
We have other episodes we can do.
But this is another interesting one, Mim, the laundress who works from Ray's. First off, this is such a great perspective. Just a great, he's like, I'm going to look at a very important scene through a side character.
Yeah,
this is just someone who was
very
there.
hyper competent side character in her one very limited field.
Yep, she is a wizard. She is a wizard of laundry.
Yeah, and she's like, yeah, anybody could do it, but they know to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this, and I'm like, wow, I don't know how to do my laundry that well. You just put me to shame.
You put it in the magic box with the magic powder. You turn it on, and then ta-da, laundry.
See, I go a bit further than that, but not to the extent that she does by a long shot.
Well, and I love how Berets is just a James Bond villain.
Oh my goodness,
really
he totally is.
Well, and I down to the point where he does one of my favorite villain tropes, where he's a really, really good boss to work for. Like, he treats his employees well. I've always loved that little trope, because I just love, he runs this giant organization. How do you think he does it? He can't just do it by fear. He does it by being a good boss and putting money into their 401ks.
Yep, and he lets her walk in the main entrance, which she insists on, instead of the servant's entrance, like, and he praises her, and he remembers who she is and things like that.
Yep.
He's just such a good boss while doing such evil things on the side.
Horrible things.
And then
I think she even says something to the effect of, she's like, yeah, he was out gallivanting, doing some other whatever thing. Like, she has no idea what he does.
Yeah.
But just that he randomly
she
gets
doesn't
blood
care.
with oil. And yeah.
And then she hires an assistant. She hires a very different assistant than she assumes.
I think is the name she's going by is Pom. P-O-M.
Pom, yeah.
Something like that. She's like, she's too pretty to be single, except, she glares at everybody, so maybe that's why she's still single.
And then we find out why she's still single.
Oh, yeah.
She's absolutely insane. Because she has been suffering for thousands of years with guilt over what she has done.
My favorite thing is that, from Mem's perspective, the most horrifying sound is cloth ripping.
Yep. But what I love about this is the scene we get, if you can tell exactly what's going on, but Brandon never explicitly states it. It's just in the right context, based on what he's already told you, you can figure out exactly what's going on.
Yep.
But because the perspective is from somebody who would have no idea, it's never explicitly stated. And I think it's just so well done.
The other thing just from this chapter that we can't not mention is when he notices, oh, you brought my laundry. Wow, you got the Aether out? And she's just like, what? He's just like, don't worry about it. Go here, get extra fire marks. It's going to be great. And I haven't read Aether of Night, But I just hear that and I'm just like, oh, Mraize, you incorrigible world hopper, you. Getting Aether spilled all over your coat.
Does he say Aether or is he talking about ether?
He says Aether.
That's a pronunciation thing. I don't remember it being spelled with an A, but I could be wrong.
I mean, I have no clue if it was spelled with an A, but in the audiobook they say Aether, so that tells me I would think the A is there.
I would too, but you never know.
Then again, she goes the entire book and she says timber the entire book.
Anyway, I'm not entirely positive, but Amy will look it up for us.
Yeah. I'm looking.
But yeah, Mraize, good boss, bad enemy.
Well, and I also like that, Palm, a.k.a. Shalash, goes and starts cutting the face off the portrait, and Mraize steps in and he's like, so that's what it took to catch your attention. Interesting. He's like the masterpiece of this
the oil
guy.
sworn, specifically.
Or the oil sworn,
yeah.
Which is, we keep hearing about the oil sworn.
Yep.
Mostly from Shalon.
Oh, it is Aether. Aether.
Okay, so that could be interesting. I hadn't even thought about that, because he's said that while the book Aether of Night, as it currently exists, is not canon because he's pulled it apart and put it into different things so much, Aether is a thing in the Cosmere.
The things that happen in it aren't canon. The systems and world is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'll be interesting. Well, like, even the villain of it is actually shown to be like the original version of Ruin. It was in that book. It's Decay.
Oh.
And that evolved to become Ruin.
I still haven't read it. I need to do that.
And so, but yeah. And he's just like, okay, let's have a chat.
Yeah.
And we don't know what they talked about, but we do know that it's Mraize and Shalash.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, he told her that he knows where Talon is.
Right, and that's how he caught her attention. Well, because she was getting ready to leave. He's like, I know the location of Talitalot. Record scratch.
The other thing, I like what Pickett says, that there's a good parallel how Mraize treats his laundry lady and Adolin treats his tailor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and he does
treat those people nice.
Mraize does strike me sort of like an evil version of Adolin. Down to the fact
they both care about their clothes.
And they're both involved with Shalon.
And sort of the darker side and the lighter side of her. Whoa.
What?
Good catch, Pickett.
Plots within plots. All right. Now let's move on to Shaller. Shaller. No.
The bad light eyes.
Jerkface. No, that's a different Brandon Sanderson character. But yeah. Anyway, so this guy, he's a light eyes. He wakes up. He's in captivity by a bunch of Herdazians.
Herdaz, yeah.
And it's just, I love the brutal efficiency and the cold vengeance of these Herdazians.
Mm-hmm.
What were the three methods? One was like letting the women he assaulted.
One was the sword.
But the women who assault get
one
to
was
be
the
the
hammer
ones
who hold it. And they stop when they decide he's had enough.
Yeah, so that's the first one. Second is we break the hammer. We break your legs and arms, then hang you from the cliff by the ocean. You might last until the storm that way, but it will be miserable. And then the third
one is the hog.
Is the hog.
They're like, what's the hog? He lives down by the ocean.
We're going to grease you up.
Yeah.
And then you
and let you wrestle him.
The men love it.
And he's like, and he's just like, I'll take the hog. They're just like, think about it first. you may want. He's like, I'll take the hog. They take him down, and
it's got to be a nickname.
First off, it's understandable why they're being so cold and efficient, because this guy, he has done some horrible things. Like this guy reminds me of the plantation lord at the beginning of Mistborn. You know, he's just horrible, raping and killing essentially.
Yeah.
And they're just like, that isn't going to happen. And it's just like this.
And he asks for a ransom too. Like, and they're like, no, honorable people get that. You don't get that.
Yeah. Well, it's like that's for people caught with.
Men caught in battle. He's like, not people who were
not
bad.
cowards. Yeah,
It's a word that I probably shouldn't
Right.
say. Caught robbing and murdering civilians.
right. But the thing is that the Herdazians are a very jovial people, and they're still they're being jovial, but there is a coldness behind it. Like there is murder in the general's eyes.
I'd say good
general?
luck, but
yeah.
I bet that you wouldn't last a minute. So
It's like I've got odds that you're not.
But I've got
So-
3 marks on you not lasting a full minute. Still, who
Yeah.
knows? When the general was chained down here, he got out in less.
Yeah.
well, the thing that's interesting because we get it from the dirtbag's perspective. The entire time,
Yeah.
he never once thinks about what he did.
Any sort of regret.
Like
He's
it's
just
nothing.
like, to him, it's just
like he doesn't even try and justify.
it's the natural order of things in his mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
Patriarchal society's gone too far.
So Amy, if you want somebody to hate, this guy's good.
Yeah, he's a good option for hating. I don't remember.
the problem
I have to
is
look,
you're not
but
going to get there's not going to get a lot of burn on that hatred because
I
the
know.
hog ate him.
Surprise!
I know. I'm gonna
Book
root for
5's
the hog.
prologue is from his perspective.
It's from the hog. Yeah. Yeah.
The
Oh
hog.
man.
Just do they even have pigs?
I don't
might.
remember. And the thing is, even if they refer to something as a pig, it very well may not be the
It
kind
may
of
not
pig
be
we're
a
thinking
pig.
of.
It's a bug.
Yeah, maybe something. Because, I mean, they have wine. They have chickens. So we don't know for sure if they... Because I don't know if we've seen a hog. But I can imagine that the word made its way over, even
Right.
if the normal creature didn't.
Anyway. Okay, so he meets
He
his untimely
suffers.
demise as he sees
And it's
an
worth
enormous
it.
claw, and the peasants rejoice.
Yay.
All the women in the world go, yes! Got it coming.
So now we move on to Risson.
Risen!
Poor Risson is not happy. Poor Risson is in a very, very dark place at this time.
Literally and figuratively.
Well, but I'm talking about specifically, she doesn't like where her
Always.
life has led
Oh, I know.
because she made one very, very bad decision.
Very bold decision that backfired a little bit.
I am so excited to find out more about the Larkin.
The chiri chiri. I think it's what you call
Because
them.
Brandon has pointed out that if you look at the illustration of the Night Radiance diagram, that like mapping out everything, there are 2 Larkin on that image. They look like dragons.
That's right, there are.
Like, we didn't know that those were Larkin. Somebody asked, what exactly do Larkin look like? And I can't remember, they may have actually even asked Brandon when Isaac Stewart was sitting next to him. Isaac, his art director. And he said, actually, there are pictures of Larkin in the books.
You just don't recognize it.
And he points out that it's on the Night Radiant symbol, and you look at it, and it's just like...
Two little, there's like a dragon above and a dragon below or something, isn't it?
on either side, flanking.
Other sides? Okay.
And it's just one of those, because we do know that there are dragons in the Cosmere. And I'm just
Little
interested to see if Larkin actually are connected to dragons or if they're purely, because there's something up with them. They eat Stormlight.
Yeah, they do.
They eat pure investiture.
And so much so that a small one is able to drain the king's drop.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently they have
Just a
bottomless
big
stomachs. They never get full.
They never get full.
Well, I love it's very, very cat-like, where she has a gym and it gets it like gets right up in it, and she's like, "No, you just ate," and she's like, "Yeah, but
like,
I
but
need
I
you.
want
no,
it. I
you
want it."
just ate." Like, I don't have cats, but I have friends who do, and apparently this is like standard operating procedure for
it's
cats.
not just cats. Some dogs do it too. Like
Well,
Rosie
dogs,
will do it too.
Dogs
They're-
don't have a feeling of satedness. Like they can't know when it's. If you give a dog enough to eat, it will eat itself to death. So, or some dogs at least.
Yeah, Rosie could eat, but mostly she just hates her dog food. But
It's
But
just it's so interesting. But I love Risson. How depressed she is makes so much sense.
Well, yeah.
that's a
She
huge
was
deal to
planning-
lose
She
your
was
legs.
planning to be a captain of a ship, sail around the world, make trades, always negotiating from a position of power.
And now
she
crippled.
thinks, and she says that that's completely impossible now.
Mm-hmm.
And I love Vistum coming into her, and he's just like, well, to the point where he gives her the title.
It's some chords, which is the equivalent of a title to a ship.
The Wander Sail's what he named it. I love how she's just like, you are a hopeless romantic.
You really are a hopeless romantic. And Brandon, I think that's one of the short stories Brandon has talked about, like another Edge Dancer type thing, is one called Wander Sail. And I think it's supposed to be about Rissam.
Cool.
Well, she strikes me as someone who could become a will shaper, as far as she has that attitude that Eshonai has.
I think that's true. I think she is destined to be a Radiant at some point, but
that'd be awesome.
She's clearly broken, but I love that in the heat of the moment, where she's just like, oh, "What's even the point?" And then finally, the part of her that's been lying dormant because she's just been so depressed finally just wakes up. She's like, "Why? I'm just fine dying." And then she's like, "No, I'm not. Dig it, I want to live."
She's like, "I want to sail my own ship. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna crawl out of here if I have to crawl."
Well, and just as the symbolic thing, she has to stand up into the crossbow to get it to work, and she makes it work.
Yep.
It's
so as
with the captain's knot.
the...
Actually, doesn't she do it with the captain's knot?
Something like
she
that.
might. I can't remember exact.
But yeah, she also ends up kicking off basically what's going on with Lift and Zeth during the Battle of Thaylen Field.
Still gets to my whole point. They wouldn't have known it was important had he not done that. Nice job breaking it, villain.
So have you guys read the Dragons of Pern at all?
Not since...
For a long time?
Like 15 years or so.
Oh, well, the only thing that came to mind was when you were asking about the Larkin and are they related to dragons? It made me think of how there's... I can't remember what they're called, but like the little dragons and then like the normal dragons. Are they called drakes?
Are they drakes? I can't remember.
I don't remember what they're called, but like there's little dragons that stay little and then there's the big dragons and they're related-ish. And it just made me think of that and wonder if there's something similar. Yeah. But anyway, I went slightly off topic for that. I went backwards. But yes.
But then after it's over, she decides, all right, I'm going to be a captain, And
we see her through someone else, through Adolin's. Who is it that goes and helps her?
I think it was Dalinar, wasn't it?
I can't remember.
Because it was after the Thunderclast had ripped open the bank. And then
and they were already out, and they were running away on a palanquin or something like that.
Yeah, he's like, so what's going on here? And they let him know.
Yeah,
hey, they took this really important looking thing. I think
Yeah.
It might have been a plot device. Crap, we gotta get that plot device.
Go get it.
Yep.
Those are the best kinds of devices.
Plot.
It's also the best kind of armor.
I'm really excited to see where Rissam progresses. Now, on a just as depressing, if not even more depressing note, let's take a look at Teft.
Oh.
I thought you were going to say the train keeps coming by, and I'm like, it's not that depressing. It's just annoying.
No, but like, so Teft is walking around, and there's an honor sprint following him. And she's like, you've spoken oaths, and you have more to speak. And he's just like,
nope.
Not going to happen. No. Go
away, pick somebody
bud.
else. Pick somebody
else.
else.
His opening line talking about how, I'm eventually going to be alone again. They're eventually going to be tired of me. It's just so like, oh my goodness, buck up, Eeyore. Come on.
Yeah. Well, and because he's at the very bottom. Like, you talk about how it's easier for Spren to bond with somebody who's broken.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty dang broken.
Yeah.
And it only gets worse because then the Spren alerts him that there's something going on. He heads back to the barracks and sees Rock and Bissig and Eth,
who
have all been attacked. Eth is dead, and Rock and Bissig are both gravely wounded. Somebody mentions a shard blade wound.
Yeah.
And, there's like, get Renarin, it's the only way that we can save him. Mm-hmm. And Bissig wakes up and he's just like, we thought he was one of us. He was wearing
he had a coat.
With captain's knots.
With captain's knots. And and Teft just
knows
it's a sucker punch to him. Because he knows exactly where they got it, because that's the coat that he sold to buy Fire Moss.
Yeah.
And oh gosh.
The other thing that's clever about the scene is the fact that as they walk in, they pass Malata because they go through the Oath Gate, and this is right as the attack comes. So they just barely miss the attack.
Well, if it was Malata.
Well, Malata, we know Malata opened up the Oath Gate to let the fused in because they attack.
Oh.
So they barely miss the attack.
Huh. But yeah, it's just fortunately that story progresses and we get an awesome moment when Teft pops through the Oath Gate.
Mm-hmm.
And,
triumphant.
It's just Teft, Night Radiant.
Bring it.
So fortunately there's a sunny spot.
Yeah. The last line between Teft, it's not in the interludes, between Teft and Kaladin just strikes me so much now. Mm-hmm. Just that we lift the bridge, or it's like we carry the bridge, or we lift the bridge together, Teft, and we carry it. Just
and
such
also,
a good line.
Well, and also suddenly, because of that, Rock is able to suck in Stormlight and heal himself. Because at first, only Renarin was going to be able to save him, and Renarin is nowhere to be found because Renarin's going to, he suspects, fulfill his destiny.
Yeah, and because Teft can finally open up the gate, he can get them to where Kaladin is, where he can finally get the Stormlight.
Exactly. Yeah. And they step in, and there's lots of Stormlight around to breathe in because Dalinar is unity, and and we can't have his pain.
Not even on Disney.
Guys, I love the interludes. It frustrates me. I see a lot of people commenting that the interludes are the most boring part to them, and I'm just like, but they're juicy.
You need those
they're
little
the little
bits.
tidbits. They expand the world. They make it feel real and rich.
It's like the chocolate syrup on the ice cream. It just enhances it.
For me, I tend to kind of so I understand where a lot of people get frustrated because they tend to come right after some huge moment of reveal.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so they're just sitting there just like, no, the plot.
You know what? It is fair. It might be different just because I've reread each of the books so many times, because I think they're probably better on a reread. Because I'm not at the point where it's just like, oh no, something's happening. Because I know what happens. And now I can dig in and say, okay, what's going on here?
What's going on with this? What's the detail I'm supposed to get from this?
Who's this Ishik Fisherman guy?
Ishik.
So it's one of those things. I understand why some people might get frustrated with them. I can't understand being bored in them because they tend to have some of Brandon's most clever writing.
Well,
Right.
if you're not looking for the deeper stuff, if you're just reading the Stormlight Archives and you haven't read other things, I could see it being easier to just go, well, I want to get back to Kaladin and Dalinar and Shallan and Teft and everybody else that way. I don't want to read about random dude in the Pure Lake or, other things like that where they're not looking for those little connections that you guys are more apt to look for. And I'm learning to look for more, but when I first read it, I wasn't looking for those. I was more focused on the main story.
Yeah, Pickett puts it well in Pickett in chat. He says they're by far some of the densest chapters.
Yeah.
And it's just there is so much to see. And that's also a reason why you might consider them boring, is there's so much and you have no idea where to look for it.
Oh, yeah.
And so. All right. Well, with that, let's move on. Guys, we're finished. We finished our main read of Oathbringer.
And so the podcast is now just over.
No, there's still more to go.
Okay.
Because first off, we have White Sand Book 3, which is now out, which we
I
will
liked
discuss
it
in
so
2
much.
weeks.
It was good.
It was so much better than the first two, I think.
Yes, and
I
the
think
art was
it
so much better.
flows a lot better.
Whoa, guys. You're
We'll discuss it later.
We'll save for later.
no, you got to tease.
save
But they liked it so much more, or did they? Find out next
or
episode.
did maybe the art next episode go
on the next exciting
All right.
episode of Dragon Ball Z.
But But you know what's next? What it's time for right now?
Time for Jordan.
A giveaway. It is a giveaway. The number I think you're looking for is 27.
Gotcha.
Let me double check that, but I believe it's 27.
What were we giving away again?
This week, tonight,
Lovely.
we are giving away an adult large T-shirt
Show it over your head.
that contains the logo of the Knights Radiant. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And if you're not that size, you can have someone make it smaller. Or you could always do it with different things if it's too
Or
big.
larger, but it'd take a little bit more work to do that. You got to add panels and
You could add
extra
panels
stuff.
on the sides. That's not impossible for someone who sews.
Right. But that said, it's a really, really cool shirt. And you can walk around, and if somebody sees you wearing the shirt and they give you a look,
You know
look
they
at
know.
them and you respond. You can look at them and say "Life before death,"
Before death?
and just keep
Sure,
walking.
Then you hold hand in hand, skip away, giggling. It's great.
And best friendships are formed. Anyway, so Jordan, why don't you give us a
Yes.
random number between 1 and 27?
All right, we're booting up the
Oh, I did my drum
Sandersonian
roll too
Institute
fast.
Cosmere Studies extremely good RNG computer. It said 6.
Said 6.
6.
6
What? Hey, it said
is
6.
Ah!
Oh,
Wow.
My life's a joke.
6 is Ryan Schmeyen from
Schmeyen.
Instagram.
I don't think that's his real last name.
It's a fun one, though.
Your dentist's name is Crentist? Maybe that's why he became a dentist.
You were destined.
So Ryan Schmeyen, we will reach out. I feel like I'm mocking you by reading your screen name. We
But it's
will
fun.
contact you through Instagram and let you know and get your contact information so we can get that sent out to you ASAP. We, of course, want to thank all of our listeners and to our patrons who have made it possible for us to have these monthly giveaways, and a very, very special thanks to Brandon Sanderson's online store at store.brandonsanderson.com for sending us so many awesome goodies to share with all of our listeners.
Yes.
Just so many cool things.
Such a
in there.
huge variety, too. Like that thing in there, so cool. Not the coolest, but so cool.
So cool. Now, of course, we are still collecting emails from you, our listeners, so please write in. Give us your feedback. Ask us your questions. Let us know what you think of what's going on in the Cosmere. Let us know what you think of what's going on in the podcast. Is there a specific topic that you want us to talk about? We're getting to the point where we're opening up the floodgates, and we're going to be talking about, we're not just going to be focusing on individual books. We are talking about what you want to talk about, what we want to talk about, and just diving deep. And hopefully coming out the other side better human beings.
Or broken.
Or just hopefully coming out the other side, honestly, because
With some sanity.
this is a rabbit hole to dive down and just get stuck in. And the fact that Brandon has his own wiki, like, if you ever gotten lost in TV tropes, this is dangerous.
It's still, in my opinion, the best named wiki ever.
The Coppermind?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple of wikis out there that I really like what they're called, but his is my favorite.
It's so fitting.
It's in contention with Wikipedia for my favorite wiki name.
Wikipedia is pretty good. Wow, that's pretty good
But-
too.
I can't do it very long. I can only do it. Yeah,
Anyway,
that was
wow.
my first one. That was good.
Tangents. So many tangents. Of course, so
stayed
if you
on for a
have
while.
questions, if you have comments, if you have, well, not complaints, but suggestions for stuff to talk about, email us at cosmerestudies@gmail.com, and hopefully we might even read your email as part of the show. Of course, outside of the podcast, we do have our own personal projects. Jordan, why don't you start us off and tell us where we can find your stuff?
Well, you can always find my stuff on twitch.tv/splicestream, but I actually need to mobilize the SICS forces here. Come the turn of the year, I'm starting a project. For those of you who don't know what it is, there's a game called XCOM, where you get random soldiers and you try to survive the alien occupation of Earth, blah, blah, blah. Tons of fun, super hard. I am going to be trying to do a series, because you can change the random name table. I need help. I need to collect all the names of the Cosmere, because I want to do a Cosmere version of a run with this. So we can get a party of, like, Vin, Bayon, Ardent Greg, and any other random person together to try and take down this menace and see what happens. And, see if we can finally get Sadius and Dalinar to go together or something. I need help, though. So if you are someone who likes XCOM and likes the Cosmere, please contact me, because this is a big project and I need some people to help me.
There might actually be somewhere in the Coppermind that has a list of characters, but
yeah, I'm sure they do.
Yeah, and so that's part of. I need help scrubbing through stuff like that. Well, and because also I need to find descriptions of people and things like that. So it's a bit of a project, and if I had 2 or 3 people helping me, hey, you know what? We lift the bridge together and we carry it.
Good night, everybody. And no, actually, so where can they find you?
Twitch.tv/Splicestream, or if you just want to contact me on Twitter, Splicestream.
Cool. And Amy, how about you?
I'm on Facebook at Coincidence Cosplay and Props, on Twitter at Coincidence Cosp because my name is too long. Instagram is at coincidence_cosplay. And right now I'm doing a secret project for a friend, and so I can't say what that is yet because I
Can you
haven't
mumble
put up
it,
pictures
though?
yet. It has to do with Terry Pratchett and scythes.
She's projecting.
So, yeah. Anyway, so I'm doing that, but I'm also doing my children's Halloween costumes, and yeah, and I'm also doing Cosmere Inktober. That's my big thing that I'm doing right now.
Yep.
Yes,
And so I don't know if I'm going to get today's picture up because I haven't drawn it yet. But I'm doing it, and I'm not a very amazing artist by any stretch. People are still really, really hard to draw.
Just draw Timbre tonight.
She doesn't fit the prompt.
If you're drawing, if you're drawing a human, make sure that it's a Voran woman and only draw from the left side.
I did do one of Shallan earlier.
Because hands are always the worst. And so.
Hands! It's the faces I can't do. I cannot do faces for the life of me. Anyway, but I've been doing that, and it's like an everyday thing. And Isaac Stewart has liked my stuff, and it was so exciting.
I love that he's actively following that hashtag and liking and commenting and stuff. He's so actually cool. Engaging.
It's so cool. Anyway, so if you want to see random drawings that I'm trying to do, you can look at that. I'm doing one every day. So yay! In the month of October.
Yay.
So yeah.
Very cool.
Rockin' a Hava.
Rockin' a Hava. Oh my gosh. That is amazing. Somebody draw that, please.
Someone better than me, please do.
Oh, that's amazing. As for me, when I'm not here, I do have a bunch of board game reviews over at the Innkeeper's Table at www.innkeeperstable.com. I do post about games on social media, so go check those out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. All of those are under the profile at Innkeeper's Table. I am actually getting ready to, in the next few weeks, I'm going to be starting a campaign of Legacy Betrayal. So if you've ever played the game Betrayal at House on the Hill, they made a legacy version where every time you play, it actually affects the future times that you play the game. It has permanent consequences. You actually put stickers on the board and stuff so things are officially different. And so we are going to be starting that sometime in the next few weeks, and I'm hopefully going to at least get some pictures from Instagram up from that. But the other thing is there's potential for spoilers, so I will try and make sure any spoilers or any pictures are spoiler free. Any spoilers are picture free. Yeah. But anyway, so I should be starting that soon, and I'm excited about that. For those of you who cannot become patrons just yet, please consider heading over to the Apple Podcasts app and to basically any podcast app where you can rate us and give us a rating. If you like us, give us a 5-star rating. If you don't like us, still give us a 5-star rating, but just
move along.
But just call us names under your breath. No. Basically, give us whatever you think we deserve. Hopefully, that is a 5-star rating. But
let's be honest. It's a 6-star rating.
I'm not. Oh. Anyway, okay. So, guys, this is the end of Oathbringer for this pass through. So, any final thoughts on the little filling in bits parts, or even just on Oathbringer as a whole?
There's always so much more. Like, as much as you feel like our tagline for Mistborn, it feels like there's even more in Oathbringer and in all the Stormlight. And the comments from Pickett 695 in the sidebar were making me laugh so hard. Those were good for his suggestions during when you were talking, Bill. So I really was listening, but I was having a hard time containing myself. Sorry.
If you're curious about what sorts of comments have been made in the chat, join us live in 2 weeks at www.twitch.tv/innkeeperstable. You could see them. You could even make them. How about you, Jordan? Any?
I am. My favorite thing in this book, as far as just a concept that I like, because I think it shows Brandon how good he is at his own storyboarding and planning things out. Kaladin not saying the next ideal, to me, was one of the most interesting things, because it just moved in the direction I wasn't expecting. There were so many things in this book that didn't go in a direction I was expecting. But that one in particular struck me as the one where he made the most interesting decision he could. And that one just stuck out to me. And I don't know. He always somehow tries to find a way to top himself. I don't know how he can top this one as far as density and those flashbacks with Dalinar, but if there's anything he's proven he's good at, it's that he's good at surprising us in inevitable ways.
Density has brought me to you. No, I've said this before. My favorite part of this book, and just about any book that Brandon writes, is whenever Wit interacts with Shallan, just because you see the depth of his character, and that's when you start to see him let his walls down a bit, and it's just so absolutely, I love it.
It's their sweet scenes. Scary sometimes, but still,
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to be leaving Oathbringer behind, but we're finally actually moving on to White Sand next time. So in addition, thanks for joining us for this part of the journey, guys. And in addition to the live episodes of the show that stream on twitch.tv/innkeeperstable every 2 weeks on Monday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, 10:30 p.m. Eastern, our listeners can find our videos on YouTube or the audio versions of the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, just about any other services that carry podcasts by searching for Cosmere Studies. You can follow us and contact us through Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the profile @Cosmere Studies. Now, for our next episode, like I said, we are finally leaving Roshar behind for a little while, and we are going back to Taldain. We've already done part 1 and part 2 of White Sand. Now we're actually going to be discussing a book that has just recently come out. I'm excited to actually discuss something that's more current.
A lot fresher, yeah.
Yeah, I am so excited about this one. And it again, it is a lot better than the first two. So if you've read the first one and thought, I'm done, if you even got to the second one and said, maybe not,
go ahead and
it's
finish
still
it.
worth
Just
going.
one more.
It's still worth going. Yeah, there's only one more to go. You can read it digitally or you can buy the hard copy. Either one is great. I did both because I have a problem. But anyway, make sure to join us next time in 2 weeks on October 28th at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Join us here live in chat on Twitch and be a part of that discussion. This current Brandon Sanderson discussion. We're getting ahead of the game. Of course, in the meantime, on behalf of Amy, Jordan, and myself, thanks for listening. And remember, there's always another secret.